This month, our theme is One Journey, Many Paths. One Journey, Many Paths. And the talk title for this week is Tabula, Rasa, and it means a clean slate. What's interesting about a clean slate is many things. I'm going to talk about this clean slate in such a way that you'll have an opportunity to maybe see things a little bit differently. But the first quote that I want to really look at is this one. Enlightenment is a destructive process. Enlightenment is a destructive process. It has nothing to do with becoming better or being happier. Enlightenment is the crumbling away of untruth. It is seeing through the facade of pretense. It's the complete eradication of everything you imagined to be true. As you take a snapshot of that and think about this for a moment, I feel it necessary to apologize to you and to the world, because before this quote, I think I might have been pushing enlightenment as this thing. This like, yay, when when the road to enlightenment is all applause and all your fans are there like, yay. But after reading this quote and recognizing that enlightenment is actually a destructive process, I felt kind of bad. It's kind of like, oh yeah, this is not all like, a walk down easy street. No wonder the road is narrow. No wonder this is a road that people say are for the courageous. No wonder all of my friends and family are not jumping on board. And not everybody is seeking enlightenment and spirituality. I've been wondering, like, what I have been talking about, of course, has always been what it feels like to be on the other side, right? Like once you cross the bridge and are there feeling spirit, recognizing the oneness with spirit and with all life. But what I hadn't relayed clearly was that enlightenment is a destructive process, that it begins to tear down at all the untruths. It begins to really call you forth to that, what people call that come to Jesus moment, where you either believe or you don't believe, whether you get an opportunity to see right there in your face that what you have been thinking and believing and practicing is not necessarily for your highest good, or really bringing you to the doorsteps of enlightenment. I remember, and I think I've shared this many times. I remember being in Hawaii with my beloved, and we were trying this new thing out called snuba. Snuba is a combination of scuba diving and snorkeling. And we're not scuba certified. So what it meant with this snuba is that the air tank, the oxygen tank, is actually floating on a raft above you. And then you put on the mask and you're able to go tethered like 25, 35 feet down below. So this way you can breathe. Now, what was interesting was that I did not trust this mask. Like I'm used to snorkeling, so I can keep my face really pretty much just below the surface and breathe through the tube. But this new mask, this bubbly mask that actually provided oxygen for me, I didn't necessarily trust it. It was like, what if I get down like 25, 35 feet and then there's no air? Like, what's going to happen to me? I'm going to die. Oh my gosh. And just like, the instructor put another 10 pounds of weight on me just so that I can, go down. But somehow or another, I kept fighting it and kept fighting it and kept fighting it. And I had that, what I call the come to Jesus moment, that moment of, wait a minute, what is it that I really believe? What is it that I really, truly believe? Do I really believe, as I've been speaking about and professing and claiming and knowing, do I really believe that life is eternal? Or is that just a crock? Do I really believe that my life is eternal? And if so, then why am I so afraid? Not that I want to leave this human experience, because believe me, I love it. But what if? What if and that was what I was faced with. What if life is not eternal? What if this is the only chance I have at this thing called life? What if? And I really had to, in those moments, make a decision that would forever change my consciousness and would forever change my life. Either I was going to believe that life was eternal, or I wasn't. And at that moment, I had to prove what I believed. And so I just took a deep breath. I stuck that mask back on my face, and I said, there's something down there that is calling me, that wants me to behold it, and that wants to behold me, and I'm going for it. And I did. And don't you know that it was perfect? I guess you knew the outcome of that, because here I am, right? I didn't die. In fact, I got a chance to see and be with sea life, ocean life, in a way that I had never been before. In a way that I had never been before. And I was able to then actually prove what I believe, that life is eternal, and that even though in that moment I was scared, that I had to actually take some action around my faith, around what I believed. Now, it's interesting because as we're looking at Tabula Rasa, which is really clean slate, the opportunity that I want you to think about is not that, it's a whiteboard or a chalkboard or something, and then, it gets erased clean and you get this quote unquote second chance. But in a sense, for me, that's what that was. It was an opportunity to have a clean slate, to experience something that I had never experienced before. For me, I like actually calling it a blank canvas. This idea of a blank canvas where there's nothing that has been put on that canvas before, that it is indeed ready for life to be painted upon it, for that experience to be painted upon it. But what is it about a clean slate or a blank canvas that we're being called to do today? And that is, that phrase that says that that the past is not the precedent. The past does not set the precedent. That in each and every moment we are at causation, that we are at cause, that we are the captains of our ship, that we have this opportunity through not only the power of our thinking, but actually the power of our being. See, what we're being asked to move into is not necessarily just thinking the divine, but what I'm asking you is to now move forward and actually feel it. Feel it to the place where you are saying, I am the divine. Last week, I talked a little bit about the 4 quadrants. And I talked a little bit about, when we first come into, or we're first on a path of enlightenment, how we come in and life happens to us. And then we learn how to do prayer treatment, and we learn about, the law of attraction. And then we start calling forth, and life happens by us. And then as a result of practicing this and knowing this and being here, we let go of that control and we drop into life happens through me. Meaning that I don't even have to consciously do things. What I need to know is that there is this divine presence and power, and that it is living through me, that it is working through me, until of course we get to that 4th quadrant of spiritual maturity, of spiritual awakening, of enlightenment, where we know beyond the shadow of a doubt that life as me, that God is living as me, that there's nothing, no thing that separates my life from the life of God. Now, many of us will kind of ricochet and bounce in between these 4 quadrants where we're the victim. This, oh, poor me, this is happening to me. And then, we get up enough courage to where we are then moving into life is happening by me, that I am the captain of my ship. And through my thinking and through the words that I'm speaking, I am actually calling forth and creating my life. And there's so much more when life happens through us and as us, which is really where we're moving into this year. We're really moving into that 3rd and 4th quadrant where we're no longer having to be in control, where we trust. Like I was talking about trusting, I had to trust and go down in that water and see, and in the ocean and see, where there was this trust in what I had been talking about all these years, where I had to put my money where my mouth is, and I really had to live as though that were the truth, and I found out that it was. You see, we let go of control and we trust that there's this power and presence and life, and that it is living in, through, and as us. And so we, not only do we get to just only think the divine, but we actually get to live as the divine. We actually get to be freed by the precedents. We get to be freed from this backwards thinking or this superstitious thinking. We actually surrender to the experience of spirit through us, as us. Imagine the life that you would have if you actually surrendered to the experience and the newness of life through me, life as me, being this channel. Like it's already a done deal, in the sense of only good, only love, only peace, only abundance can happen through me. The question is how do I set myself up for life happening through me? Glad you asked. Glad you asked. How do I set myself up for life happening through me and life happening as me? Well, you already know the answer to that. The answer to that is spiritual practice. Spiritual practice, but now a spiritual practice of not that I'm controlling things and now that I'm calling forth the parking spaces, the palace, the prince, the princesses, all of the joys of life, but that now I'm practicing the presence to such a degree where I know and where I am actually feeling the oneness of life, where I'm actually feeling the love of life, where I'm actually recognizing that all of creation is simply divinely perfect already, and to the degree in which I allow life to flow through me, that it is always for my highest good. That when I begin to tinker with things and trying to manipulate and trying to cause things to happen in a particular way, that I'm actually shortchanging myself and my experience. Imagine that. Imagine that life through me and life as me is already perfect and whole and complete. And that the moment that we kind of fall back into life by me and we begin to try to control and tinker with things, that we're actually shortchanging ourselves of the fullness and the newness of all of life. The other spiritual practice is to become self-aware. There's something about being self-aware that is so important. Our self-awareness, our enlightenment, our coming to know God as our very life, and also getting to know God as the life of all is so keen. It means me being right sized, that I'm so self-aware that I know that I am not better than anyone else or less than anyone else, but that right where I am, the power and the presence of God, of life is, and that right where each and every person is, that God is right there. So that self-awareness really depends upon me monitoring and becoming aware of my inner dialogue. Now, if you were to have an alarm and that alarm were to go off randomly, and when that alarm went off, you were to ask yourself, okay, what was I thinking just then? What was my inner dialogue in that moment? I wonder what you might find. I wonder if you would find that you are filled with all these hidden beliefs, all these stereotypes and prejudices. I wonder if you would find that you are actually bad mouthing yourself. Oh, I'm just too old, or I'm a piece of crap, I'll never amount to anything, or oh my gosh, I wish I had more money, I wish I was thinner, I wish I was taller. Maybe we're reciting words to songs that are not for our highest good, right? Maybe maybe we're thinking that someone has it so much better off, or maybe we're just resentful. That inner dialogue speaks volumes as to what it is that you're truly believing. And it's actually the pathway, the doorway to recognizing the hidden beliefs that are still operating as a law in your life. What if you begin to monitor those inner thoughts, that inner dialogue? What if you began to do your work with a practitioner, with a spiritual guide that could help you actually uncover the hidden beliefs that keep you stuck in quadrant 2, in life happening by me, that keep you stuck and keep you paralyzed and don't allow you to move forward into life through me, life as me? What if we really, really, again, as the first quote said, really were courageous enough to really seek the enlightenment, because here's the deal, is that for me, same thing. I look at people and I go, wow, I want what they have. But you know what? I don't I don't know what they went through to be there. You know, we see spiritual people, whoever they are, you can name them in your own head who you think are spiritual people, people who are successful, people who in your mind walk on water maybe. And we kind of want what they have. Wow, if I could only be, where so-and-so is. If I could only trust like so-and-so does. Maybe my life would be better. But it takes some uncovering and some discovering. But what you get to recover after that is you get to recover who you really are. Don't you know that throughout the years, we've been bombarded with messages that have now become our beliefs about, that we're nothing, or that we're less than because we're born a female, or a person of color, or transgender, or we're born in the wrong country, or whatever it is. We've been bombarded with these crazy messages that strip us away of who we really are. That we are the unique and unrepeatable way that God shows up, that life shows up in human form. All of those demographics that have been used to put you down or to separate you from others is BS. It's a belief system that no longer serves you. No wonder we're talking about a clean slate, a blank canvas, that if we're ready, if we are going to be part of that humanity that awakens to its spiritual magnificence, that we have to, each of us, have to be courageous enough to step forward and to step through whatever it is that we think that person who we say, oh, that person's so spiritual, believe me, that person has gone through what they sometimes call the dark night of the soul. That moment and those moments over and over and over again, where that destruction of the untruths come to light, where there is an obliteration, where each and every person is dropping a bomb. Yes, I mean it to sound so violent that way, because it is destructive of the untruths. Like that is the only place, if you will, where destruction is actually sexy. I'm dropping a bomb on those thoughts and beliefs that keep me from my greatness. I have to drop a bomb. I have to laser explode and implode those untruths that I've been believing and living based on. It was just like that experience in Snuba. I had to and start with a clean canvas and really, really dive, pun intended, deep into what it is that I believe. The other spiritual practice, besides practicing the presence and besides becoming self-aware, is being in the silence. We had an opportunity to do that this morning with Jan. After she read that quote from Ernest Holmes, and we had an opportunity to just be in the silence, in that inner spaciousness where we become aware of our own consciousness. Not the consciousness of thinking, but consciousness, life itself. Being still and silent enough where we become aware and we begin to experience the rise and fall of thoughts and the feelings without being attached to them. You know, that silence invites us to become comfortable within our own body, within our own mind, within our own consciousness, so that we can release those distractions. We can release those weapons of mass distraction that lead us away from knowing the truth of who we are. We have an opportunity in each and every moment to have a quote unquote second chance, a do-over, a clean slate, if you will. And it is there in that clean slate of having a practice that we have the opportunity to really practice the presence. When in thought, in contemplation, in imagination, in inward feeling, you consciously return to the source of your being. The divine pattern which already exists springs forth into newness of manifestation. See, when we're in that thought, when we're in the contemplation, when we're there, what we're doing consciously and actively is we're returning to the source of our being. When we're in prayer, here's what happens. Treatment opens up avenues of thought, expands consciousness, and lets reality, notice it's a capital R, it lets reality through. It clarifies the mentality, removes the obstruction of thought, and lets in the light. Beloveds, it is so important for us to engage in a regular spiritual practice. We will not reach the quote unquote promised land. We will not reach enlightenment unless we are willing to go through a destructive process, the destruction of our old thoughts, our old ways of being, our old ideas that are not truth. That must be eliminated. And the way we do that is not by sitting in front of the television one more time, watching the news, entertaining doom and gloom, but it is indeed by telling your vision. Tell a vision. Tell a vision. It is indeed by you tell a vision of your own life, of seeing and being deeply rooted in consciousness, deeply active in spiritual practice. And then finally, one spiritual practice that I enjoy is the spiritual practice of forgiveness, which is not really a spiritual practice, but I name it so because if we're courageous enough to go on this path of enlightenment and go through this destructive process, when we don't necessarily make it the way we want it to, at the end of the day, forgive yourself and know that when we wake up again, that when we awaken again, that we awaken with a clean slate, that we awaken with this knowing and with another opportunity. I love this quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. He says, "Finish each day and be done with it. You have done what you could. Some blunders, some absurdities, no doubt crept in. Forget them as soon as you can. Tomorrow is a new day." And then finally by Meister Eckhart says, be willing to be a beginner every single moment. Be a beginner every single moment, every single morning. We can start again just by saying, I'm ready to start again. And I leave you with these two affirmations, if you will. One is a statement: every moment holds to the promise of a clean slate, which I am open to the promise of a clean slate, which every moment holds. So remind yourself to be open to the promise of a clean slate, that every moment holds this opportunity for you to begin again and for you to begin within. Beloveds, this clean slate is not necessarily a do-over, but it is indeed the opportunity for you to just start wherever it is you are. Enlightenment might be a tough journey, but believe me, on the other side of it, when you actually feel the at-one-ment and the oneness with all of life, when we begin to catch those glimmers where we get to say, I love my life, I love my life, I love my life. When we begin to value and empower all, when we begin to inspire a joyous and fulfilling life, that, beloveds, is awakening humanity to its spiritual magnificence. And just like the phoenix rising, sometimes things have to be burnt down and destroyed in order for a new day and a newness to arise from within you. My invitation is to surrender to that newness. I want us to be there together, and I want us to enjoy life together from this place of life happening through us and life happening as us. It is so, and now it is.